He was the man behind the piano, the architect of a sound that conquered the world, yet he was never the face in the spotlight. While millions screamed for ABBA, it was Benny Andersson who quietly built the emotional core of their music. But the truth behind his story is far darker than glittering disco balls or sequined jumpsuits. For decades, fans asked the same question. Why did ABBA, one of the most successful groups in history, suddenly disappear at the height of their fame? No farewell tour, no official breakup, just silence. And now, after years of speculation, Benny is finally breaking that silence. What really tore the band apart? What secrets has he been carrying all this time? And why is he only revealing the truth now, at 78 years old? Before the world ever danced to Dancing Queen or cried to The Winner Takes It All, Benny Andersson was just a boy in Stockholm, sitting at home with an accordion almost too big for his small hands. Born in 1946 to a working-class family, music wasn't supposed to be a career path, it was just a family tradition. His grandfather played by ear, his father loved folk tunes, and little Benny absorbed every note like it was a secret language only he could understand. By the age of 6, he could already pull melodies out of that accordion that stunned his family. But Benny didn't want applause. He wanted understanding. While other kids dreamed of becoming stars, Benny was dissecting songs, fascinated by how harmony and rhythm fit together like pieces of a puzzle. He taught himself piano, often replicating melodies after hearing them just once. By 10, he was performing at family gatherings and school concerts, not for attention, but because the music inside him couldn't stay silent. It wasn't showmanship that set him apart. It was sensitivity. Every note he played carried emotion far beyond his years. He wasn't chasing fame, he was chasing the essence of music itself. And that obsession would become the foundation of one of the most powerful pop legacies the world had ever seen. But Benny's first real test came when he stepped out of the living room and onto a much bigger stage. By the time Benny hit 18, his quiet obsession with music had already transformed into raw talent that couldn't be ignored. In 1964, he joined the Hep Stars, nicknamed the Swedish Beatles. Almost overnight, their sound changed. With Benny at the keys, the band shot up the charts with songs like Sunny Girl and Wedding, both written by him. The hits weren't just catchy, they carried a melodic strength that hinted at something much bigger. Behind the scenes, Benny was more than just a keyboard player. He became the band's musical brain. He experimented with arrangements, tested new studio techniques, and learned how to shape a song so it stuck in people's heads long after it ended. Fame came fast, but Benny wasn't dazzled by it. While others chased the spotlight, he was chasing perfection. Then came one night in 1966 that would change everything. At a party filled with musicians, Benny sat down for an impromptu jam with Björn Ulvaeus from the Hootenanny Singers. What started as a casual session quickly revealed something extraordinary. Their styles, their instincts, their vision, everything clicked. Benny was the emotional composer, Björn the clever lyricist. It was the beginning of a partnership that would rewrite pop history. Over the next few years, the two wrote endlessly. They experimented with different sounds, pitched songs to other Swedish artists, and sharpened each other's strengths. Benny wasn't just learning how to write hits, he was learning how to build worlds inside music. And when two women with powerful voices and even stronger personalities entered the picture, the final piece of the puzzle was set. What happened next would launch them far beyond Sweden and into global superstardom. By the early 1970s, the puzzle was complete. Benny and Björn weren't just writing partners anymore, they had joined forces with two women whose voices would soon define an era. Agnetha Fältskog, a rising Swedish pop star, and Anni-Frid Lyngstad, a fiery jazz singer with a voice that could cut straight through the noise. Together, the four of them formed a group with a clumsy name, Björn and Benny, Agnetha and Anni-Frid. The name was forgettable, but the chemistry was electric. In 1973, they tried their luck at the Eurovision Song Contest and failed. But failure didn't break them, it fueled them. The next year, they came back with a song that would ignite the world, Waterloo. It wasn't just a win, it was a cultural explosion. The group, now rebranded as ABBA, became international stars overnight. But while the world cheered at their glittering costumes and infectious choruses, something deeper was happening behind the studio doors. Benny treated each song like an architectural masterpiece. He layered harmonies with mathematical precision, pushed synthesizers before they were fashionable, and obsessed over every tiny detail until the music carried exactly the right emotion. His gift was contrast, songs that sparkled with joy but carried a hidden ache beneath. Fernando, Knowing Me, Knowing You, The Winner Takes It All. They weren't just pop hits, they were emotional puzzles, disguising heartbreak inside melodies that millions sang along to with smiles on their faces. And while Agnetha and Frida dazzled audiences in sequined jumpsuits and Björn charmed with clever lyrics, it was Benny who sculpted the soul of ABBA's sound. He wasn't just writing songs, he was building a kingdom of music, one that would outlast the disco lights and echo across generations. But as the band reached unimaginable heights, cracks began to form. And they weren't just in the music, they were in the marriages holding the group together. For most of the 1970s, ABBA looked unstoppable. Every new single dominated charts, every tour packed arenas, and their image seemed untouchable. But while the glitter shone brighter than ever on stage, behind the curtain the foundation was starting to crack. The first fracture came in 1979, when Björn and Agnetha announced their divorce. To the world, they smiled through interviews, insisting they could separate personal life from professional duty. But inside the studio, the air grew heavier. Songs like The Winner Takes It All carried pain that felt too raw to be fiction. Fans thought it was just great songwriting. In reality, it was heartbreak turned into melody. 2 years later, history repeated itself. Benny and Frida's marriage collapsed. What once looked like a fiery, symbiotic love, the kind that powered their performances, was fading fast. Benny's obsession with perfection, the same quality that made him brilliant in the studio, left little space for real emotional connection at home. Frida, always expressive and yearning for closeness, felt the void growing. By 1981, Benny admitted he had fallen for another woman, and the quiet confession sealed the end of their relationship. The band pressed on, but the fractures seeped into the music. Their 1981 album, The Visitors, was nothing like the glittering anthems of earlier years. The melodies were darker, the lyrics more introspective. Songs like Slipping Through My Fingers and When All Is Said and Done felt like confessions set to music. The magic was dimming, replaced by a heaviness no costume or choreography could disguise. ABBA was still at the top of the charts, but emotionally, the group was falling apart, and soon the silence would be louder than the music. Most legendary bands go out with a bang. Farewell tours, emotional press conferences, one last explosive show to seal their legacy. But ABBA, they simply vanished. Their final single, Under Attack, came out in late 1982. It slipped onto the charts without fanfare, lacking the fire of their earlier hits. And then nothing. No world tour, no breakup statement, not even a whispered goodbye to the fans who had carried them to superstardom. One of the biggest groups in history just faded into silence. That silence fueled decades of speculation. Fans invented their own answers. Was it money? Was it betrayal? Were the divorces too much to overcome? For years, none of the band members gave a clear explanation. Interviews stayed vague. The word hiatus floated around. But the reality was obvious. They were gone. ABBA became frozen in time. A perfect pop group immortalized at their peak, their absence turning them into something almost mythical. But that mystery also gnawed at fans. Why would a band at the height of fame choose to disappear? The answer wouldn't come for over 40 years. Then, in 2024, Benny Andersson, long the quiet one, finally spoke. In an interview, he stripped away the rumors and revealed the simplest, rawest truth. We were exhausted. The music was starting to sound unnatural. We needed to stop to preserve ourselves. No scandals, no explosive fights, just emotional collapse. The band hadn't been torn apart by betrayal, they had quietly unraveled under the weight of their own lives. But Benny wasn't done talking. For the first time in his career, the man behind ABBA's music was finally ready to tell the story fans had been waiting decades to hear. And what he revealed next shocked everyone. After the silence of the 1980s, the members of ABBA drifted into separate lives. But for Frida, life took a turn no one expected. In 1992, she married into European royalty, suddenly trading the stage lights for castle walls and royal galas. The press painted it as a fairy tale, but it wasn't. The structure of royal life clashed with her free spirit, and beneath the gowns and titles, she struggled to fit into a world that felt suffocating. Then, tragedy struck. In 1998, Frida's daughter was killed in a car accident in New York at just 30 years old. The grief shattered her. The woman who once lit up the stage with fiery emotion disappeared into seclusion, retreating to her home near Lake Geneva. Fame, royalty, music, none of it mattered anymore. And yet, in her darkest hours, Benny reached out. The same man whose perfectionism had once driven a wedge between them quietly returned. Not with music, not with promises, but with understanding. They shared something no one else could. Decades of highs, lows, and the collapse that followed. Their connection, rebuilt in silence, was proof that some bonds don't vanish, even after everything breaks. Then, the unthinkable happened. In 2018, after nearly 4 decades apart, ABBA reunited. The announcement shocked the music world. Fans who had long accepted the band as a memory suddenly had reason to believe again. 2 new songs were recorded, but Benny had bigger plans, something no one could have imagined. By 2021, he unveiled ABBA Voyage, a project so ambitious it blurred the line between nostalgia and the future of music. Using motion capture and digital avatars, ABBA returned to the stage, not as aging icons, but as their vibrant 1979 selves. Backed by a live 10-piece band, the avatars performed night after night in a custom-built arena in London. The response was overwhelming. Over 1.3 million tickets sold, fans from more than 140 countries, critics stunned at how lifelike and emotional the experience felt. Of course, it was Benny who obsessed over every detail, from sound design to emotional precision. Nothing less than perfect would do. And when a $1 billion offer came for a live reunion tour, the band said no. They weren't chasing the old highs. They weren't going back. Instead, they redefined what it meant to perform on their own terms. But Benny's real revelation was still to come. For the first time in his life, he began speaking openly, not just about the music, but about the pain he had hidden inside it for decades. For decades, Benny Andersson was the silent architect, the man who let melody speak while he stayed in the shadows. But now, at 78, the silence is gone. In recent interviews, he has begun unraveling the truth he once buried in the music. He admitted that songwriting wasn't just a craft, it was his escape. Every time he felt pain, he poured it into chords and lyrics instead of conversations. "I gave my best lines to songs," he confessed, "not to the people who needed to hear them from me." That single sentence reframed everything. Benny wasn't distant or cold, he was afraid. Afraid of direct confrontation, afraid to expose the rawness inside him. So instead he built songs like Knowing Me, Knowing You, Slipping Through My Fingers, and The Winner Takes It All. Tracks that millions danced to without realizing they were listening to the sound of 4 people barely holding themselves together. And that was ABBA's greatest contradiction. To the outside world, they were polished perfection. Sequins, harmonies, smiles. But underneath was fragility, heartbreak, exhaustion. Not scandal, not betrayal, just human vulnerability. For fans, Benny's honesty was a revelation. Suddenly, the melancholia in their final albums wasn't just artistic, it was real. Those songs weren't written to chase charts. They were survival songs, coded messages of people unraveling but too afraid to say it aloud. And perhaps that's why the music endures. It wasn't fantasy. It wasn't bubblegum pop. It was real emotion. Messy, complicated, painful, hidden beneath the gloss. Benny's silence almost destroyed him, but his music kept him alive. And by finally speaking the words, he gave closure not only to himself, but to millions of fans who never understood why the band disappeared when they were on top of the world. The quiet man at the piano had finally let us in. Now, the end Benny Andersson's story isn't about sequins, sold-out arenas, or #1 hits. It's about fragility. The man who built ABBA's timeless sound spent decades hiding his emotions in the very music that made them legends. And when the weight of those hidden feelings became too much, the silence swallowed the band whole. But maybe that's exactly why ABBA's songs still resonate today. Beneath every glittering hook and joyful chorus was something raw, something human: pain, loss, regret, survival. Benny has finally confirmed what fans felt all along. These weren't just pop songs. They were lifelines. And now, after all these years, the man at the piano has spoken, not with perfect harmonies, but with honesty. His truth reframes ABBA's legacy, not as flawless pop idols, but as 4 people who turned their heartbreak into melodies that the world will never forget. So here's the question. If ABBA had faced their emotions head-on, instead of burying them in their music, how different might their songs have sounded? Would they still hold the same magic, or would the pain have lost its disguise?